guys, this is Professor Vitt. We're going to work this problem. Remember, we just count out the number of letters that we have here. We have a G and an N, so I'm going to put them over here on the left-hand side in alphabetical order. Count up the number of letters I have, which is 2. That tells me I'm going to have 4 rows. I'm going to have 2 true, 2 false, and then when I move over one more to the N, I'm going to get true, false, true, false. Okay, so now I'm going to go through the process. Remember, truth tables always start the same way. Never, ever just feel like you have to leave it blank. Move over all those values and start working. So here we go. I'm going to go true, true, false, false, and true, false, true, false. And then I'm going to go true, true, false, false. And then I'm going to go true, false, true, false. And then T, T, F, F. And then I'm going to go T, F, T, F. Then I'm going to go to G. I'm going to go T, T, F, F. Okay. So I moved over all my individual values, and now I am just going to look for the first thing I need to do, which is individually negated statement letters. So I'm going to go not G, and then I have T, T, F, F here. And that's the only one I've got. So I'm going to start there inside the parentheses. Here we go. So it makes a true statement false, right? True to false. That's what the negation function does. And then false, and then true, and true. Okay, so now I'm going to keep on working inside the parentheses here. I'm going to compare this to this underneath the horseshoe function, or excuse me, the conditional. So what I want to do is look for true, false. If I find that, I'm going to write an F. In every other case, I'm going to write true, and that's because of what it means to be the horseshoe function, right? The first part is true and the second part is false, then the whole thing is false. So I've done this here. This is my last column, and I'm going to compare this column for the horseshoe here to this part, which is the antecedent of this big part of the sentence. So I'm going to compare them under horseshoe, and I'm going to look for true, false, which I have right here in the first part. If I get it right, then I'm going to put false. Otherwise, everything else is going to be true. Good. Okay, so now, this was my last column right here. We're going to rock and roll and go over to this side. I'm going to start inside the parentheses. Remember, I want to go inside the bag, right? And everybody says, no, Professor Vitt, you have to start inside this bag, right? So remember, if you're not sure where to start inside a parentheses, and then when you're done with that parentheses, move to the next inside parentheses. Okay, so I'll show you. Here we go. I've got the triple bar. I'm going to look for an equivalence. That's all triple bar is. It's a biconditional. And so if both sides are true, then the whole thing is true. And if both sides are false, then the whole thing is true. But if one side is true and the other side is false, as we have here in these two middle rows, then the whole thing is going to be false because it's going to be false that they're equivalent, right? So we've done this one here, and now I'm going to do the wedge. Remember, the wedge is fuerte con la fuerza. It's very strong with force, so that means that it's only going to be false in one case. And that's this case down here where both sides are false. In every other case, it's going to be true. So here we go, a little tummy rumble. And I have this column here that I just finished, and this column. Now I'm going to compare these two underneath the conjunction function. So here we go. True, true makes it true. Remember, the conjunction is kind of weak, and the only way that it will be true is if both sides are true. Another way to put it, if one side is false, congratulations, the whole conjunct is false. So here we go. False, true, that makes this false. False, true, that makes this false. True, false, that makes this false. Okay, so I'm going to remember where I was right here. So I'm going to compare this, the last operation I did on this side of the conjunct, and I'm going to compare it to this, which is the last column I did on this side of the conjunct, and I'm going to compare them underneath this dot right here. Remember the dot. We just did it a second ago. We're looking for any false. If we find any false, then the whole thing is false. So here we go. False, true makes it false. True and false makes it false. True and false makes it false. And true and false makes it false. Okay, so here is our row. We circle it so that we know the last one. And when a sentence is always false, it is a self-contradiction. So we write self-contradictory. And that's it. You've done it. So I hope that one is helpful. We're going to work one more of those babies. Okay, you guys, this is Professor Vitt, and you can see I've written out one more of these problems for us to work on. So remember, this time what we're doing is we're using truth tables to determine the validity of an argument. And our argument looks like this. We have three premises, 1, 2, 3, and a conclusion. The premises are if S, then T, so S implies T. If S, then not T, and if not T, then S. And what we want to determine is whether or not, if these three premises are true, then does it guarantee that the conclusion S or not T is true? Now this may not be intuitive to you. It's hard to see it just by looking at it. So what we're going to do is rock and roll here, and we're going to fill in each one of these individual letters. And then at the end of this, we're going to look for T, 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 F. If we find that, then we know there's one row on which even if the premises are true, the conclusion isn't true, which means that truth from the premises doesn't flow all the way over to the conclusion, so it's a bad argument. It's invalid or not valid. Remember, we want an argument where if the premises are true, it guarantees that the conclusion is true. So let's go ahead and write this out. Here we go. T, T, F, F, and then T, F, T, F, and then T, T, F, F, and T, F, T, F, and then I'm going to do the same thing here, T, F, T, F, okay, and then the same with S, I have T, T, F, F, and now I'm going to do my conclusion. Again, I'm just bringing over the values, T, T, F, F, and then T, F, T, and F. All right, so we're ready to rock. What we want to start with is individually negated statement letters. So what does that mean? It means I'm looking for the negation function that applies to just an individual capital letter or an individual statement. And I'm going to run that first. So let's start right here. Remember, the negation function makes a true sentence false and a false sentence true. Okay, and now I'm going to, because I've done this one, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish up these next. So I'm going to do this one right here. It makes a true sentence false and a false sentence true. Oopsie. Holding the marker the wrong way. All right, and now I'm going to go here, do the same thing, just filling in my negations. Okay. So now I'm going to go through and work each one of these babies. So this is the horseshoe. I'm looking for true, false. That should be familiar to you. So the first part, the antecedent true, the conclusion, or the consequent, excuse me. If the antecedent is true and the consequent is false, then the entire conditional is going to be false. Otherwise, in every other case, it's true. Don't worry right now about why that is or how to make sense of that. Just know that it is. Okay. And now we have true implies false, so that's going to be a false. True implies true is going to be true. False implies false is going to be true. And false implies true is going to be true. So do that a little quickly, but I'm just comparing the antecedent here to the consequent plus the negation here. So I have true, false, false. Everything else is true. We do the same thing here, so that's true, right? This one to this one is true. This one is true, and this one is false. So I did this one last. That one last. I did that one last. Okay, now we're going to finish up here with our conclusion. True, false is true. True, true is true. False, false is false for the wedge, and false, true is true. So remember the wedge, both sides need to be false in order for the disjunct to be false, and we've done that here. So I'm going to compare, and I'm going to look for true, 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 false. If I find it, then the entire argument is going to be invalid. So I want to find true premises and a false conclusion. If I find that, then I know it's not valid. If I don't find it, then I know the argument is going to be valid. So I see a false premise here, so I'm going to start with that one. So I'm going to say here, okay, this premise is true. This premise is true. This premise is true, and yet this conclusion is false. So let me show you right here. This is our problematic case, right? This is the case where this premise is true, this premise is true, this premise is true, and yet the conclusion is false. So this argument is not valid. You can put invalid if you want. And remember, we want as many valid arguments as we can in the world. And so whenever we run across an invalid argument, we just put a sad face, just because we know that it's very difficult to be the bearer of an invalid argument. Okay, you guys, I hope that has been helpful. Okay, you guys, and I just want to walk you through a couple of the translations here. This one is number 2 from the Nightmare Before Christmas translations. I'm going to go ahead and read it out loud once, then I'm going to display the answer and talk you through it. So here we go. Number 2, if one night Jack were to come upon an amazing sight, and, right, anytime you see the and, look out, it's probably going to be a dot, and his luck had finally changed, comma, then there was a massive Christmastown doorway carved in wood, and it was not 20 feet from the spot where he stood. Okay, so here we go. The first thing you want to look at is the very first word. Here it's if, so that tells us there's going to be a horseshoe involved, right? So this ends up being our horseshoe in the middle because the antecedent of the horseshoe, the first part of the horseshoe, is itself going to be a combination of 2 sentences. So if, and then Jack were to come upon an amazing sight, so that's J, and his luck had finally changed, L, comma, so we close our parentheses, there's our horseshoe, implies there was a massive Christmastown doorway carved in wood, there's the D, and it was not 20 feet from the spot where he stood, not T. Okay, good, so there is that one. Now, hold on a seckie. Okay, number 3. So I'm going to do the same format here that I did on the other one. Either Jack was entranced or Jack had a slight sense of worry, given that Jack slowly opened the door to a wild snowy flurry. Whenever you see the word either or, it's going to be a disjunct. So let's see what we've got. So we do have a disjunct here, J wedge F, right? That's our part here where it says either Jack was entranced or Jack had a slight sense of worry. That's this part right here, right? It gives us the disjunct. But you have to be careful with the phrase given that. When it says given that, what it's telling you is horseshoe. And everything that comes after the given that is going to be the antecedent of the horseshoe. So here's another way to think about this. I will make a logic video given that I have a computer that lets me make the logic video. In other words, the way to think about it is I have the logic computer, therefore I'm going to make the video. So here it says either J or F given that S. And what that means is if S, then either J or F or both is going to be true. Okay, so that's our one. So if you see this one, remember, you'll start off translating with the either or, but that given that will snag you and it's going to be a conditional. Okay, let's do one more. Okay. Oops. Come on now. Here we go. All right, so here we go. Number 5. Why can't I be Santa? Why does he get to do it year after year? Why can't I spread cheer? Why must I stalk the graveyard spreading panic and fear? Remember and keep in mind that questions aren't statements, and we can only translate statements into our logical language, right? Something that's capable of being true or false, but a question itself is not capable of being true or false, so it's not going to help. Okay, all right, so I'm going to do one more translation, but I'm going to sneak a little something in here first, as people usually wait for the end. So this is going to be our exam. I'm probably going to change the picture on it, but this is our exam. And if you've made it this long in the video, you will be able to see what the questions are for tomorrow. But then I'm going to do another translation, and I'm not going to say anything about it at the end. So if you've actually watched the video, then you'll see that, oh my gosh, This is the exam. But if you just fast forward to the end looking for the answers, I'm just going to pretend like, okay, that's not it. Okay, so here is our exam. So let's do one more translation. So this one here, remember, questions are not statements. So when you get asked this or if you get asked this, just write that down. Questions are not statements, so I can't translate it. Okay, and let's do let's do one more that we have here. Okay, if not one person understood Jack. Let's do that one. That's a long and a hard one, right? Okay. If not one person understood Jack, then not one person knew what he meant, and wreaking such havoc was not Jack's intent. Also, comma, Jack was not happy, but like a dream, Santa brought Christmas to the land of Halloween. Okay, so remember, just take it a bite at a time. So here we go. We start with an if, so we're going to have some kind of conditional, which is going to end up right here. So if not one person understood Jack, so that's horseshoe, not one person understood Jack, then not one person knew what he meant, so not K, where K is one person knew what Jack meant. Here, not one person knew what Jack meant. Okay, now we have the semicolon, which says, hey, these babies here are on their own. They're on their own. And wreaking such havoc was not Jack's intent, period. So dot for the and. Wreaking such havoc was not Jack's intent, not W. Close it off with a little bracket. It's fine. You can do that. There are specific rules regarding brackets and parentheses, but for our translations at this level, it's just meant to make it look a little bit easier. So I'm not going to be as strenuously detail-oriented with regard to brackets versus parentheses. As long as you're balanced out, you're okay. Also, so this is our next comma here, Jack was not happy, so not J, but, that's the dot, like a dream, Santa brought Christmas to the land of Halloween. S. So this is what it looks like. This whole sentence is a big, huge conjunct. And it's a conjunct which consists of this statement over here, which is itself a conjunct, and this big, huge conjunct right here, which consists of a negated individual statement and a conditional. And that's where this part is right here in the beginning. Okay, you guys, I hope that's been helpful for you. Look, I know it is a lot of work, and it can be very stressful getting ready for this exam, so I hope you guys are ready, and I look forward to grading your papers. Thanks a ton.